We have, together with our teams, put together this event, Leadership Forum, because both of our organizations, Medtronic and Maastricht University, have a common goal around diversity. We both promote diverse leadership and wanted to make sure that we could do something and put diversity on the map here in our region.
So my hopes are that people getting inspired to learn about how to make sure we're going to have sufficient women in leadership positions, and also network with each other so that they learn from each other and know how to find each other after the event. And I think we're going to achieve that.
I think it was a very active audience, so they all had quite some good questions on how you can make structural changes, not only within your institution, but also on the level of society, because you see also there that the culture is not always accepted, that women grow in their career and then also have less time at home. So how do you deal with that? So we also got quite some personal questions on how we struggle sometimes ourselves with trying to find a good work-life balance. Exactly. They even called it the management team at home, which was new for me.
Yeah.
So tonight I go home and I will say, let's have a management meeting on the household.
What I ended with is, for young women, it's important to believe in yourself. I think that's extremely important, and especially when you make next steps in your career, have the courage to take some risks.
Yeah, and what I said in the end was that we should all take the responsibility to make changes, not only for us as leaders of an organization. That of course that's responsible that we also have the same objective, but in the end we should do it together, and that people should also speak out if they see injustices in the organization that actually prevent women to grow.
Be who you are. I mean, this is a very general message, and but I really mean it. You cannot force things. If you show who you are, you act who you are, how you are, you're really you in your work. I think a lot of things, as it comes to inclusivity and diversity, will come in the right track. I'm sure of that. I think it's good to remember what Madeleine Albright once said. She is the Foreign Minister of Foreign Affairs of the United States, and she said there's no room for mediocre women in the top of an organization, but there's lots of room for mediocre men in an organization. And we should think about that, because that has not to do with how can we manage with women to become something else than they are. This has to do with wise people thinking, how can I enforce my organization? What do we need to have the good balance in the top of the organization? And these are different questions than, is it a woman? And I'm sure, I'm really convinced that when we are in a sort of pure thinking on what is the best for the organization and thus also for the people, we will reach this good balance between men and women, dark and not dark, and red and yellow, and whatever we are, and who we love, how we love. It's of no importance if the thinking is pure.
There were very interesting discussions about the way the equality in the executive boardroom, etc., can be achieved.
It's not only about including or building diverse teams. For me, it's both diversity and inclusion. So also being respected in that way.
I would like to hear men talk a bit more. So in general, the workshop where I was in and the questions came only from women. Mostly, it would be great if men could share how they feel. Maybe they disagree. I would love to hear why and what is their perspective on all of this.
Most of what I learned came really from the exchange between the private companies and the university. I was quite surprised to see that there's quite a big of difference, and I think we can learn from each other. Private companies are sometimes more advanced when it comes to certain things, and I think the university particularly could maybe have a look at some best practices that are already in place.
My major lesson learned is that changing bias and behavior starts at home. Teaching your kids, teaching your loved ones to treat equal. and to make no difference between a boy or a girl or a man and a woman. These kind of events are key to get to the next level. Change starts by talking about it and making everything in an open forum. I think we did a great job today having an open forum. It's a very nice discussions also with people outside Medtronic.
Today's been a very informative event. We've been able to get a lot of information about what's happening across Maastricht in terms of some of the companies that are leading the way in terms of women in leadership. But we've also learned that there's a lot of challenges still to go, so we as the people who attended today need to go forward and be the ambassadors for this in the future.
People were very open, we're really sharing examples. It's also part of being inclusive, is to be transparent, to feel safe, to talk about this together with men and women, all ages, across organizations, as a city, as citizens. And also coming up really with concrete examples, so because then only it becomes solution oriented.
We really wanted to bring together leaders from Limburg to discuss inclusive leadership. And we thought it's a good moment now because actually at the moment 3 of the biggest organizations of the region are led by women. So we brought these 3 women leaders together to inspire us today. We learned in workshops and we are networking with the different organizations because we think it's important that we talk to each other.